Hello, welcome back to another episode of BAFSAF. We are on episode 10. Oof. My apologies. I'm super late. I've been late all day. Not gonna give any excuses. Just that been busy and I'm not keeping up with the schedule. But we are here. It's September the 7th, and for the month, I didn't choose not, or I chose not just one, but two topics. We're on a two-parter this month. Today we're going to be talking about the definition and idea of being an introvert or an extrovert, introversion or extroversion. I found it. I was speaking to my wife, and she kind of hinted that it would probably be a good idea because I was researching it, and I understood that the definition that we come to believe and hear and know about it's very diluted. For instance, we know that being an introvert is someone who doesn't like to be around people, who's shy or is awkward in social environment. When that's not the whole definition. I kind of wanted to be able to shed light on people who are aware of their social characteristic, and to kind of give you the idea of seeing if you know where you're at, if you choose to believe so, which one you fit into. Um, so to start, I didn't realize how late I was. I was waiting on 6 o'clock, seeing that the time said 6 o'clock. And I finally looked at my phone and I was like, it's 6:20. I got 40 minutes. And for some reason, I thought I was starting at 7, which to me was 6. But that's where I'm at right now. But when we getting there, we getting there. If you take a look, you might have noticed something different. And if you've caught on to it, you're absolutely correct. I did get that haircut. Another thing, thank you for everyone, all the birthday wishes that I received here and now and for the coming month. I really appreciate it. What I don't appreciate is people calling me old. I'm only 32. Like, I know I'm getting older, but I'm not old yet. I'm wise, but I'm not old. Okay? Y'all can stop calling me old. Y'all keep calling me old to show y'all a different side of me. No. Let me calm down. Let me calm down. Not do that. That's the old me. Anyway. Yet again, I did not do the whiteboard weather. Because I was clearly on stupid time, right? Give me one moment. Boy in there grunting like he actually pushing something. So again, we'll check out the weather that no one really cares about. I usually look at it on my laptop, but letting the wifey borrow it because hers is incapacitated at the time. Let's see. While I'm pulling all this up and in late fashion, I do want to take the time for everyone that has still continued to view. For any new viewers, I really appreciate it. Your constant support keeps me going, so I really want to appreciate it. We did reach a point where we had 23 followers. That was awesome. For some reason, it looks like it decreased, but that's all right. We're gonna make our way back up to 25 by the end of this month. Mark my words. So here we go with the September forecast. Today is the 7th, so we're looking at Friday the 8th, a high of 94, low of 65, completely sunny. Saturday the 9th, we're looking at a high of 92, low of 63, partly cloudy. Sunday the 10th, we're looking at a high of 86. Oh, looks like we're getting cooler for the week, y'all. Low of 62, mostly cloudy. Monday the 11th, we're looking at a high of 70, low of 56. It's raining. Scattered showers. Tuesday the 12th, we're looking at a high of 77, low of 55, mostly cloudy. Wednesday the 13th, we're looking at a high of 77, low of 56, mostly cloudy. Thursday, same thing. High of 77, low of 56, mostly cloudy. Friday the 15th, we're looking at a high of 76, low of 56 again, with it being scatter showers once more. Saturday 16th, we're looking at a high of 82, a little warmer, low of 56 for the fourth night in a row, mostly cloudy. Sunday the 17th, high of 82, low of 57, 1 degree warmer, mostly cloudy. Monday the 18th, we're looking at a high of 83, low of 59, scattered showers once again. Tuesday the 19th, high of 86, low of 61, mostly cloudy. For the remainder of that week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the 20th and 21st, we're looking at a high of 85, 86, low of 61, mostly cloudy. So we're gonna get some rain and it's starting to cool off. So go ahead and pull out your fall gear, your hoodies, your scarves, your stockings, your pumpkins, that one hoodie that your boyfriend lent you that you forgot and is now your ex. I don't know. I don't know your story. I don't want to know. Kidding. Okay. So again, this month is gonna be a two-parter. This week we're gonna talk about intro and extroversion. The third week of September, our return of BAFSAF, we are going to discuss where'd I put it? Aging and how that's affected you socially, how you handle being in social interactions, something like that. It's pretty much the topic of social interaction, social behavior, different methods and ways of how you interact socially. I won't say that differently for a third time, but yeah, that it just kind of felt right to speak on it now. With me becoming older, I kind of wanted to touch base for everyone to kind of, shed light on what it's like to get older and things to change and, be out of our control and how we feel about it. And then also just shed light on some of the people, the unsung heroes of being social, Not everybody likes to talk. Not everybody likes to get out. A lot of people can't, sit in one place. They got to be around people, and that's all right. So we're gonna give them some love. So again, we'll do a schedule rundown here real quick. Hold on. All right. Okay, schedule rundown. So we today was a bust, right? Next week we are scheduled to do sketch and catch featuring Trey. I do anticipate on being on time for that. Back at it again at 11:30. Then the 21st of this month will be here. BAFSAF, 6 p.m. And I promise, 6 p.m. I won't let anything get my way that day. And then the last week of the month, September 27th, which is the Wednesday, we will be back again for Sketch and Catch episode 4 with Trey. And all the times that I provided are Central Standard Time for anyone who is confused about that. I know I didn't really do so well with providing that information. And then, of course, each week, Friday through Sunday, I do stream Xbox One games from 11 p.m. to whenever I decide to get off and before I fall asleep. Usually till about 2 or 3 in the morning. Thank you for the patience you all have given me. I understand that this is kind of a rocky start, but all right. So introversion, extroversion, being an introvert versus being an extrovert. I did some studying, did some research, and I felt like it was important that we could shed some light on this topic. One reason why I wanted to really do the research on it was because I've been seeing that a lot of people tend to. I was calling it at the time a self-diagnosis because I didn't understand exactly what being either or really was. So, I took it as people self-diagnosing themselves because you hear, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm an introvert because I do this and that. I'm an extrovert. Well, it's always people saying that they're an introvert. I've never really heard a lot of people saying that they were an extrovert. It's always people who wanted to feel inclusive but excluded by saying that they were an introvert. And that's not to call anyone out, but we live in a time where labels are a thing. People have to label themselves. I mean, obviously, like we've got, not to dive in it too much, but people who want to be known for a specific, you know, gender role that they play or sexuality role that they play. Like they wanted to be labeled for that. The pronoun phase that went by, and then in between all that, it's everyone's just kind of like, oh, what mental illness I think I have, what mental illness I do have, and then it was, oh, I'm an introvert because I'm this way, I'm that way. I'm an extrovert because I'm this way, I'm that way. And I get it, but I don't. So I understand that, like, when you're curious about something, it's almost like taking one of those online quizzes, like one of those Harry Potter ones where you're like, oh, I wonder what class I'm in or whatever it is that they call. But I see that the phase of wanting to label yourself has been it's the wave. It was a big wave because people think that they had to be labeled for some reason. They had to be, some specific category, and I don't really think that's necessary. I mean, you can have traits and just be you, you know. Oh, you good? Yeah, you good. I'm late anyway, so you're good. But so yeah, like I just think that we I think what it is for me is why I feel so strongly about it is that when people tend to take on these labels, they play the part. We know you're probably thinking about the person or people that I'm talking about now. I mean, just kind of acknowledge them, but don't think of them in a negative light because I get it, and it's understandable why they do it. Maybe I can help kind of alleviate some of the stress and pressure of maybe needing to feel like you have to label yourself. So there's those specific people who go, they hear about something, maybe someone heard about what being an introvert is, and then they're like, oh, from judging from what I heard, I show similarities. So then they'll go do a little bit of research and see that they fit the profile, almost like looking up how sick you are using WebMD. It doesn't really help when you go look at something and it's like a list of everything that could be wrong with you. You're like, well, I guess I'm dying today, but you forget that it could just really just be like a common cold. Simple stuff like that. So same thing for being an introvert or just labeling yourself in general. You go find the research that calls to you. You just see everything that sticks out to you instead of reading. I mean, you may or may not read everything that you see, but a lot of times there are those people who will look at an entire thread, pick out everything that they feel like sticks to them. They apply it to themselves. Thus, I was calling it self-diagnosing. But here's the thing, it can't necessarily be a diagnosis because it's not a medical, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't medically diagnose being an introvert or an extrovert. It's a characteristic profile. From what I understood and what I researched is that it's mostly genetic, but it can also be an influence of your environment or an influence of how you grew up, you know. So when people go to research who they are, and I've also seen it too, where they go to research it and they kind of change into a different person. They try to apply this newfound label to themselves, and it kind of changes. They end up changing who they are. It doesn't change them. They change, willingly, trying to convince people that that's who they are. That's who they've always been, or because they found that out. That's. And I want people to understand, like, you shouldn't have to feel pressure to do that. It's cool to research it, like, to understand, because we don't really know, and to put a label on something like that, it's almost like the knowing the answers to like a 23andMe research, like, oh, this person's my family, that person's my family. You get to know things, but are you really doing anything with it? If you found out that you had a celebrity as a relative, are you going to go and automatically think that because they're your family in your family tree that you can go asking them for whatever it is that you want or need, or are you going to act like that you're close family just because the family tree says so? I look at it like that. You don't have to apply those things to yourself because you see that's how you're categorized. So when you get those people, or it may even be you, and again, it's okay. I'm not calling anyone out. I don't want you to feel like you're attacked. It's just that I don't want you to feel like you have to be pressured to go by what you've researched, right? So let's say we know someone who's done that. They'll go do the research and they come back and they're a little changed, they're a little different because they've applied the research to their character, their personality. Again, some people will go as far as saying that they went and saw a doctor. Well, I didn't really do a lot of extensive research on whether or not it was relative to go see a neurologist or if actually just seeing like a family doctor and saying, hey, I feel this way, is this what it is? Oh yeah, no, that sounds about right. Okay. Because what I did find out is that it's not a medical diagnosis, therefore it's not anything to be treated or cured. It's a personality issue. Well, not even an issue, it's a personality characteristic, I should say. And I also looked up if there was any reason to medicate said character profile. There isn't. I think because we tend to correlate introversion or extroversion as, like, for introversion, we'll say, oh, there's anxiety, depression, social anxiety. And then for extroversion, you might say, oh, I'm ADD, I'm ADHD, I have abandonment issues, stuff like that. You're not curing anything if you take medication for being an introvert and extrovert. What you're taking medication for is possibly an actual mental diagnosis, which intro and extroversion is not, again. So I did look up that there were some medications that can be provided for that specific reason, but it's, again, not to be taken due to you being an introvert or an extrovert. There's usually some different reason going on that you might be prescribed that medication. I didn't get any of the names of them because I didn't find that was necessary. But Google, Bing, any search engine that you use, if you really want to go find it, you can research it to each what you can handle. So let's go ahead and start off the bat here. I wanted to make sure I understood the actual definition of what it means to be an introvert, and it's pretty much just someone who's shy, less of a social person. There's also a different definition. Not so much different is that there's a different way to define it, if that makes sense. Introversion is a personality trait. Oh, so sorry. No. The alternate definition is a person who focuses more on their inner thoughts and emotions, not someone who expresses them so much. So the word intro, meaning internal, is someone, as I just said, focuses more on their inner thoughts and emotions. So what you're really doing is that, and there's I'll get into it here in a little bit, but there is such a thing as a social introvert, right? So to kind of give you that key to think about is that, let's say you're not sure what you are, but you can be out in public with people, but you have a tendency to kind of be in your head. You feel internally. When someone comes up and approaches you, you might be a bit timid, but you may know how to respond in certain ways. But you may have a tick, like anxious tick, that happens whenever you talk to people. Like, for instance, you'll know when someone's anxious in the moment or in specific environments when they have like a laugh or a giggle whenever they respond. And nothing's really funny. There wasn't a joke being made, but for some reason, it in their mind, they're putting at ease the pressure of the conversation by lightening the mood by giving a, you know, you know, yeah, today's great. Giggling for? I just asked you how your day was. You you on that stuff? Oh no, I'm not on that stuff. Okay. All right. Something like that, you know? That can be easily confused as something different, but having a nervous tick like that doesn't exactly mean anything. But it could lead to a point of thinking like, oh, it's probably one of those things that people looked up and they're like, oh, I have nervous ticks. I'm an introvert. It's like, well, hold on, it may be something different, but you could be onto something, right? Um, let's see here. Introversion is a personality trait, not a mental illness. I had said that plenty of times already. So, when it comes to being an introvert, it's not necessarily about being socially awkward when it comes to being in a social setting. It's not always about that. Rather, that introverts tend to lose energy being around people, being in social environment, having to talk, having to do something outside of themselves. That's really the true definition of an introvert, is someone who tends to lose energy by being socially present. Now, some of you may go, well, that's me. I get tired. It's a little more complex than that. Some people, when you get around people, like, for instance, we're all getting older, right? A lot of us like to say, oh, I don't like to be out too much, or I like to take naps now, or whatever meme that you've posted or that you related to on social media that made you feel like you're in the right mindset of your age, right? As memes always make people feel better about how old they are or who they are. But what I've learned about being an introvert and being someone who tends to kind of gas out in public settings is, I think what it is like there's this internal stress to having to be present, having to interact in a way that you're not prepared to do, or like you can't even be prepared, but that's also an anxious aspect where you know that it's coming, but it's just like, oh, all right, like it's almost like you have to pep yourself up to do it. Now, I feel like when I say that, you're like, oh, that's me. Instead of being that person who goes, "Ah, I gotta go and talk to this person, you really don't have to. I gotta be out here, you really don't have to. Ah, here they come, I gotta be nice. You just gotta be respectful. That's not, personally believe that's not something where you would say, I'm an introvert because I lose energy in that manner. Not, I don't see that it's you losing energy in that way. I think that you don't allow yourself to tolerate having to do something that you don't want to do. I think we got to understand the fine line there. Again, I'm only doing this so we can kind of understand the introverts having to live this kind of life, and being able to understand them better, understanding your friends who are actual introverts who have issues being in social settings, and you can actually clearly see it, like they're physically showing that they're just like kind of clamoring, um, doing something with their hands, looking around a lot, being socially aware, being timid, kind of like drawing back in a corner or away from the crowd. And if you can see them from across the room and you see how they interact with people, you can kind of tell that they don't want to be there, but they're being nice, as opposed to someone who's just sitting there responding with an attitude. Although introverts are known to have them when it comes to being in a social setting where they don't want to be, it's there's a line that makes it different, because you may not want to be there and you're having an attitude about it. Well, you could have stayed home. I don't know what brought you to that social setting, but I feel like if you're an adult, unless it was work related, you really don't have to be in that setting. It's good to venture out whenever you're ready to, get as much as you need, and bounce. But to sit there and say that, like, oh, I don't want to be out anymore, but you're constantly out, I think that's there's something different there that you can kind of address on your own time. And I mean, that's not to pull away that maybe you are an introvert or an extrovert, but kind of different things, a different way to think about it instead of just like taking online research, something that you saw on social media that makes you believe that you are in fact one of the other. What I also learned is that you can't be both. You can't switch. It is a psychological factor. It's a characteristic again that was mostly genetic, but it can also be influenced environmentally. The reason why it sounds like that, where it's like it doesn't make sense to say that in the same sentence, right? It's genetic, but it also is a influence. It's an environmental influence. Um, what I understood, because I asked that too, what I understood with that is that there could be so much talking going on that there is a point where it actually was revealed that you really don't like being in those in social settings. You may be chalking it up to I don't like this particular social setting, but it may just be in fact you don't like big social crowds, social settings to begin with. You have to kind of take it a little bit at a time. Being somewhere that you don't want to be there, and like your brain is telling you, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, causing some stress stress and exhaustion. That's where I would kind of see it to be a environmental influence, something that's causing you to understand and reveal that you don't really care for this. Now, when it comes to introverts losing their energy, being in a specific social setting that is exhausting to them, there are ways to recharge for an introvert. What I've come to understand, for actually, we'll get to, well, no, we're already there. Let's see. So, what I understand about introverts and how they recharge, it's almost like thinking about a recluse. Being out in the open, maybe in crowds, maybe in a handful of people in a small room, whatever it is that makes you feel, you know, different. And it drains you. And when I say drain, it's not like a slow drain. From what I understand, like it's a rapid drain where within maybe like an hour or two, you're like, I gotta go home. Like you just feel like you're sapped because there's just that stress and strain on feeling like you have to be present, and it just really takes a toll on you. So again, what I'd come to understand and learn is that introverts, in order for them to recharge, they have to recluse. Meditation, I saw, was a big help. It kind of allows you to be exactly what it was to be an introvert, being internal with their thoughts and emotions. Doing yoga, kind of, being able to release the tension, relieve the stress, stretching out anything and everything, just kind of, recollecting yourself, going to the gym, listening to music, reading a book. It's something that is solitary. Anything you can do that's solitary that allows you to just kind of be like, all right, I've come back to earth. I'm good. We can go and see people again, day or a few. What I also learned about introverts is that they are known to be perfectionists and or self-critical. I did look into this a little bit this one a little bit, but I didn't really get a whole lot of different. So what I took from it, and I kind of feel this, it kind of, kind of itched at me because like I was like, I understand that. It's more than just understanding that you have growth, right? It's like everything that you do has to be like everything has to be done right, everything has to be done to a T, and it has to be 100%. If there's any rhyme or reason that it doesn't go the way you as an introvert planned, that could take a toll on you. And then you start to, self-blame, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to look into also seeing what what would help someone who goes through that? And I think I could answer that personally. You just kind of have to take a step back mentally and emotionally and just kind of let yourself understand and remember that, not everything is going to go the way we anticipated. So, and trust me, I still to this day, like me being late to my own stream, I'm a little upset about it, but I I'll try to do better next time. I'm doing better in the aspect of being able to allow myself to understand it's not a mistake. It's just, it didn't go as planned. And when that happens, I think we take anything that wasn't 100% to the plan as a mistake, as a fault, as to blame. But because we're so critical, we end up blaming ourselves because we start to see that, oh, I could have did this, I could have did that, I could have did that. We don't necessarily like to blame anyone else. I'm saying we. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Introverts. Well, I guess because I think I'm speaking a sense that I get it in that aspect. Okay, so I'll continue. We don't want to point the finger. We don't want to blame. We just want it to be fixed. We want it to work. We want everything to go swimmingly. There can be no room for error. So when error is forced upon us, we're like, what? Why? There is a itemized plan right here. Why is it going wrong? And there's a little bit of chaos within us, which causes that stress, which causes that tension, which then causes that exhaustion. And it's like, oh, I gotta tap out early. That's some of that's one example of the mental process of an introvert, is that you just kind of like sit internally with your thoughts. Since we're not exposing our thoughts about the issue, we're not blaming anyone about the issue, we're putting that criticism on ourselves. That right there is the internal gears working, saying me, I, this, and it keeps you there. It's like a loop, and I've hit that loop many a times. It's not fun, but you have to learn how to get out of it by just. I had said this in a different episode. If it's something that you can answer or resolve in that moment or within a short time frame, go ahead and put some focus and effort into that. But if it's nothing that you can do within half a day, table it. Start to table it. You'll notice that you may or may not notice that the load that you keep on yourself will be a little lighter. As you continue to do that, you'll see that it can lighten up to however much you need it to be. I did also read that there were 4 types of introversion. I didn't know that there was even more than one. I thought it's just like, oh, introvert was being an introvert. Some people like to feel like they're included. I'm not really sure. But now I'm aware a little more about it. So let's say, introversion, there is a social introvert, which I had spoken about earlier. There's a thinking introvert. Sounds like it's a little more detailed than what I've already provided on that. There's this anxious introvert, which we kind of already discussed, and then a restrained introvert. I didn't understand why they used the term restrained until I actually looked it up, and I think it fits. And it's really interesting that they used it. So when I say they, I saw that there was this. I think he was a psychologist. I goes by the last name of Cheek, I want to say. He had determined that there were more than one type of introversion because people portrayed being an introvert, but they were all a little bit different. So social, thinking, anxious, and restrained are the 4 types of introversion that he had stumbled upon and came up with. I did understand that the science and the research behind being an intro or extrovert dates all the way back to the 1980s, so it's fairly new, which makes sense as to why it's such a craze. Like everyone's trying to understand which one they are, and then kind of abide to that. So it's, still pretty new, and for us to be in main media, because back in the 80s, unless you knew you had to know, or you listen to the news, or you watch TV across the nation, you wouldn't know what the other part of the country was doing. You didn't know what was going on unless you were in the magazines or you were a celebrity. It was pretty hard to understand what was going on in a different part of the nation. But so restrained introvert, also known as the inhibited introvert, tends to be more reserved and can have their guards up around others until they get to know them. So, I mean, the ideology of the actual character profile is in the name itself. Kind of keeping yourself from being able to have fun and enjoy things, which I found very interesting because I do believe I understand that one. I think we've all done that once or a few times. Maybe there was a person or a group of people that we saw there was no issue with, but we just didn't want to or couldn't be around them. It's fine, Maybe you're just going through something, or maybe something was actually wrong, or maybe you were just having an episode with your introversion or extroversion, which is perfectly okay. Again, earlier I was saying introverts can be social, um, as is category number one on what type of introverts there are. They're also known to be people pleasers and aloof. I had to kind of look up what aloof means because I wasn't necessarily sure what the definition was. I've seldomly heard the word in my life, so I really didn't know. I kind of had an idea, but wanted to make sure there was nothing different as to why the word was its word, and we didn't actually use a different term for it. But with them being aloof, they're hard to get to know. So having a conversation with an I believe someone of this caliber would fit into the thinking, anxious, and restrained introvert. Yeah, because if you're trying to ask them questions, trying to get to know them, they're just going to be standoffish, answer very short and brief, or they'll give 1 or 2 word answers verbally, so to speak. All this is verbal, not just texting. All this would be verbal. They don't necessarily like being put on the spot or being interrupted, which I completely understand. 100%. The whole not being put on the spot thing is a little different because I'm used to it, and also it's I don't know, I kind of see it as a challenge, which is kind of fun. But being interrupted, that one hits home because I've lived a life of being interrupted by people, and I get it, Very easy to get frustrated about that because you're trying to make a point and someone's clearly trying to talk over you, and then as you get louder, that person gets louder, or and it's very frustrating because it's like, well, hold on, why are you still talking when I was the one talking first? And I don't know about anyone else, but I've had instances where someone got mad at me for still trying to talk even though I was being interrupted. It's like, well, hold on, no, you're not rolling this in here expecting me to kind of follow that ideology. No, that's not happening. Let's see. So just to kind of describe and dive into the 4 types, as we had said earlier about social introverts. So they do exist. You can, in fact, be a social introvert or introvert. What it is, again, is just that you're able to get out there, you're able to talk to people, you're able to have a good time and enjoy yourself with little to no hesitation or reservations. But it's just that, you could only take so much of it before it's like, oof, I'm beat, I'm tapped out. I think a lot of people who claim to be an introvert like to apply that one specifically to themselves because when I've seen a lot of memes where people post about, oh, me when I'm at home versus me when I'm out, and everything always goes to the kind of like line or setup of, oh, I just can't be around people for too long. That's understandable, because I think what it is that, and this is just from my personal experience, like if you're constantly in a environment or position to always be around the same thing over and over and over, I can see anyone being tired of it, especially as you get older. Things tend to change mentally and emotionally, so you'll hit a point in life where you're just looking around and you're kind of just like, I'm not really feeling this anymore, and you start to slowly make some changes. Or some people make big changes quickly, like extravagant changes, just to, make sure that everything flips immediately, right? But then you have some of those people who just need that time. I think I can be in the middle, because I can do both. I can either flip the switch real quick, or I just kind of sit with it to really understand how I feel. But with social introverts, it's like, oh hey, here to hang out. Dang, man, I gotta go. I gotta go to bed. Time for me to go home. You know, I think when it comes to understanding a social introvert, because again, there were people who will be, oh, I'm shy, or I can't talk to people in public, therefore I'm an introvert. One thing to understand is that it's, oh, you can really want to be out with people. Let's not let one definition define exactly how you operate, whether you're intro or extro. You don't have to let anything define who you are. It's just however you are naturally can be determined whether or not you're an intro or an extro. But there are social introverts who can really just be like, yeah, let's hang out, and then shut down, or become tired quickly, becoming irritable. They just kind of seem like a different person who's just kind of dragging, but it's not anything to do with you per se. It's just something about them neurologically doesn't allow them to really handle it too well, or handle it for too long. There's no dexterity when it comes to being in a social environment for an introvert, because it's exhausting, right? So there's an idea of what it's like to be an introvert. Let's go ahead and move on to being an extrovert. It's about the same. From what I was trying to compare and contrast, the list or the ideology of it's a little shorter than what it is to be an introvert. With intro and extro, int, ext being opposite, we understand that extrovert or extroversion is someone who's outgoing or overtly expressive, one who feeds off of social gatherings. So, just to kind of be um, blunt about it, we know those people who always have to be out around people, who like to be in social gatherings like bars, clubs, parties. Those people who always have a good time going out, and they enjoy every bit of what it means to go out. Getting dressed, the drive, eating or drinking, depending on whatever it is that you prefer, showing up, people acknowledging you, seeing people that you know, and you have like a specific way of introducing, or not introducing, I guess saying hellos. Your hellos, like, with some girls it's the and then, with some guys, it's like, oh, what up? Like you kind of get this like little hypeness about you when you see people that out in public. And it's, like when you're out in a zone where you can be free of yourself, that's the typical reaction when you see someone that you like. Those are the type of people I would assume are the most extroverted. Again, it's same as an introvert. An extrovert is not a medical issue, can't be medically diagnosed. Now, oddly enough, when it comes to being an extrovert, if you feel like you're drained and you need a recharge, a good way to do that is to read. I'm assuming there's a specific genre when it comes to reading that really captivates or ties in with specific introverts and extroverts. Maybe introverts will like more of a, I think a specific genre of book for an introvert would be like horror, sci-fi, thriller, uh, uh, crime. And then for an extrovert, I feel like that would be like drama, family, um, some action, some rom com, some comedy, something like that. I feel like that's what would be a genre specific for extroverts. Could be wrong. Maybe it's different for you. That's just kind of how it would make sense to me. Um, what I came to understand about extroverts that we may all know because they're opposites to introverts. Uh, there is such a thing as a shy extrovert. Like, yeah, you may internally want to be like, yeah, let's get out there, let's go have fun, but you don't know how to talk to anyone in public. You're out there to have a good time, and then someone approaches you and you clamor up like a Venus flytrap, a fly in its mouth, and you just don't let go. You know, there is timidness when it comes to being an extrovert because you could be one of those type of people who go out and like to dance, like to sing, like to be active, like to be seen. And someone comes up, oh hey, I like your moves, I like your style, and you're just like, yeah, I dance, and that person's just like, okay. But then you continue to do things like dance, sing, move around, play like you have karaoke or something like that. I don't know. When it comes to being an extrovert, it's commonplace to see them having issues with being bored or disengaged. So a lot of times that you might see someone who's constantly like fidgety after a while because they need to get up and move around, which I feel like is definitely my boys, but mainly one of my sons. But yeah, just when they get to a point to where it's almost like you can tell someone's bored when they get annoying. It's that person. I want to say that specific category for someone who's an extrovert. I think that's what they are. They get bored and they get annoyed or annoying. With it coming to be about a social setting, you'll always no not often sorry you'll often find extroverts are talkative, active, or sociable. So if you go out in the public setting, you always see the ones who are like a what they call them social butterfly. Well, they'll be all over the place talking to people. They can make a friend just anywhere they go. Those kind of personalities who can really just like draw people in because they're so fun, they're bubbly, or they have a vibe to them, and um, that's what I would feel those type of people are as far as social butterfly, right? Let me see. Take a minute here. So I believe that's all I had to cover as far as those two. Um, so again, I wanted to kind of shed light on the differences between the two because I think it'll help understand if someone you know or love fits into one of these categories and if there's anything that you can do to help. So again, kind of going with like 4 ways to recharge. Like for instance, one way that like I was saying earlier, one way for an extrovert to feel depleted is if they're bored. They have no one to talk to. You might see that there are more extroverts on social media than you would an introvert because they're trying to get that dopamine. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Have to kind of know it all right at the beginning. One thing I do want to kind of really enlighten is that if you ever know someone to be one of the two, I think the best way to act towards your peer is just to remain normal. But if you see or notice or experience that they're the type to try to, apply themselves to whatever it is that they found. Like, say you've got a roommate who, he's kind of timid in social settings, but he does all right. Doesn't get out much because he likes doing things at home. But whether there's like a party at the house, or there's a dinner and someone else is invited, or like you go and there's like a whole group of people invited, or you go to like a bar or club. One thing to do is just be able to kind of check in with your peer. Like if you kind of see that they're a little more timid than how they were when they came in, just kind of like give like, hey, you good? Doing all right? You need some fresh air? Do you want to step away? If they answer, "No, I'm good," kind of take their word for it. Don't be pushy, because then you're just adding more stress to them, because that right there, that unwanted attention is more stress than what they're already dealing with at the time. You don't want to make them feel pressure that because they're aware of a character profile that befits them, that they have to counter behave because of it. Again, it's just like being able to read like a little fun quiz and be like, "Oh, I'm this." You're not gonna act that way for the rest of your life, but it also shouldn't feel like you shouldn't feel hindered. And family and friends, your peers shouldn't have to feel hindered because you're like trying to be supportive, or trying to be understanding. It's just be normal and ask questions. With introverts, they are known to be a little bit testy, especially about a sensitive subject about like their psychology or how their mind works, or even their emotions. Sometimes that'll always be a little bit touchy. Even more so if you're the type of person who believes in astrology and will follow that, right? But I would suggest, so like with an introvert, if there was a person that you knew that was just kind of having like a tough go at it out in public, or in a situation where there's a lot of people around, like let's say festivals are a really good one, because you're walking, it already feels claustrophobic because there's just so much around you, there's so much to do, so much going on. But then you've got people who go and make this traffic in the middle of all of it, and it's just kind of suffocating. I would, if you're looking to be better about it, I would definitely understand what the social cues are given by an introvert, for them to be like, "Oh, hey, I just need a minute." Like maybe you can create a signal, like let's say your introverted friend is having a hard time sitting in the room on the couch next to someone they don't know, who's been trying to have a conversation with them the entire night. Allow your friend to do a gesture for you to be like, "Oh, okay, let me go ahead and pull you out of this." And also with what's the word? I don't know. In secrecy, kind of like, like under wraps. Like, hey, no one needs to know about our signal and pickup. But if you ever feel like you need to throw me the signal, I'll come get you out of there, take care of you, and put you back in, if that's what you want. As far as extroverts go, I think it just, I think for me, when it comes to supporting an extrovert who's feeling less of themselves, because all they got to do, well, I won't say all they have to do, for the most part of what I understand, is being able to be around people is enough, right? Well, what if this particular extrovert doesn't have friends? Or, yeah, no, we'll do friends. What if they don't have friends? Like you're the one of two, and like you understand them so well, but they don't know how to behave, react, counteract with anyone, like, especially strangers. Um, Allow them to understand like a signal as well, because that could kind of make things off-putting. What it really is that you don't want them to sink into a place because they can't go express themselves the way that they want. Like they want to be out, they want to be free, they want to feel like a caged animal, they want to feel like a spirited butterfly. Find little things that maybe your friend might appreciate. Like, for instance, my kids know when we're leaving the house, we're going to one of a few places. We're either going grocery shopping, we're going to the mall to let them play what we call friends. There's a like a playground that kids are always at, or an actual playground, or it's outdoors. The mall's indoors, and then there's one that's actually outdoors. But um, they know that once we have them get the shoes on and we start grabbing the keys, they know that we're going to one place or the other, and it allows them to, exert that energy for as long as they can handle. With kids, especially in the heat, give it 15 minutes and they're ready to, like drink water, go home, blah blah blah. So I kind of feel like in a way that's a good way to think about being able to be there for an ex can't even say it anymore extrovert. Put them in a environment where they'll thrive, or where it just allows their mind to kind of like wonder and they can get that dopamine kick that way. And just to kind of say this, it's not always like a social thing. Sometimes it's, for some people it can just maybe it's just being out in public. Maybe it's just being around specific family. Maybe, well, I guess if there's any specific person, it's not. I think it's deeper than it being an intro or an extrovert. I think it would be different. Yeah, like it definitely be different. I think why I wanted to touch on this topic so much is that being able to see people jump on the bandwagon of one or the other, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand with how people would self-diagnose a mental illness. Like, oh, I have anxiety because I'm this, and that I read online. Oh, I have depression because I'm this, and that. It's like you can't read something online and be like, oh, I'm that. It's deeper than that, because people who have to deal with that, who have to live that life, it may be a lot more difficult. And with you sitting there saying that, oh, I have this, I have that because I'm this trait, well, and you can pretty much function a lot more different and better than the person who's actually experiencing that. But that's a perfect take. Like for someone who deals with depression, it may actually be hard for them to get out of bed. It may actually be hard for them to interact with society. It may actually be hard for them to really put into like a mindset that I need to take another step. I need to feed myself. I need to get to work. I need to be present, not necessarily socialize, but be present. Like they're they're so overtaken because they want to be able to be normal, but something about them and their brain chemistry is keeping them from that. I feel wholeheartedly for people who experience something like that, and for anyone to go, oh, I'm this way and we're the same. It's not like trading cards. It's not like a relative thing. Some people who actually deal with it wish they don't. And then for you to be like, oh, I have it too, or I'm this way too, right? And you're kind of using it as a crutch for attention or to gain something. They're not gaining anything. They're literally going through life having to be this way, and they want to be what they classify as better. When really it's just they want to be different. They want a different life because it's hard to go through that. And I think I wanted to raise awareness in that aspect that, not only do people don't have to label themselves in that manner, but you also don't really need to try to be relative with someone who actually experiences it. And I'm not saying that you may or may not actually experience it, but for someone who wakes up every day going, I hope it's a better day. I would like for it to be a better day. I'm manifesting it to be a better day. And then you're waking up going like, oh yeah, no, I have that too. I'm this way too. Like, do you see the tone? Do you feel the tone is different? Because what you'll do is you'll wait for a maybe, and this is just a general consensus. Maybe you're the type of person to wait for a conversation to be brought up, so you be like, "Oh yeah, that's well, I also have it," or "Yeah, no, I understand it because I have this." Like you try to be relatable as far as anyone who would actually have depression, who's an actual introvert, and they don't like it. They don't want to be that. They don't want to be labeled that because they understand what it comes with. They won't necessarily jump the gun to go tell someone looking for the attention or looking for the sympathy, because it's just that much unbearable. No, you good, bro. You're good. I'm actually just waking up. It's all good. I actually still have a few things to go over. No, but you're good. I'm actually gonna. I'm drawing a blank. Guest star here in a little bit. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna open up in a little bit. So yeah, no, take your time, man. I need to get up and stretch here in a second. So, but back to what I was saying. I think it really calls to me to raise awareness for that because I get it. Like I said earlier, I really do. Like, we live in an age where we want to be part of the fad. We're like, oh, now it's like, oh, I'm labeling myself because I'm this label. Like, everyone's doing it. Oh, I'm a label too, because we see that some people are getting some sympathy that we're not getting. Some people are getting some attention that we're not getting. Therefore, we gravitate towards what everyone else is doing. But it's not that people are doing this. It's just that there's an awareness that you want to be a part of. There's nothing. I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with it, but I also don't want to say that there's not. It's just that you shouldn't feel like you have to reach for that. You know, and I want to blame social media for it, but really we allow ourselves to be that way. And again, it's not that it's anything wrong. I think we can just do better. One big issue I had, and I'll be honest, and we'll get controversial if we have to, because we'll open up the open discussion that way. I really didn't appreciate, although I'm not aware that I have any mental diagnoses such as anxiety, depression. Like, I can sit here day and night and say, oh, I relate to most of all symptoms of someone who has this and that, but I won't actually diagnose myself and say that, because I really don't know if it's just me needing a therapist, me just needing to, like, stop playing victim. Because even though I'm not aware that I'm doing it, maybe I am. I try to think about it differently, but I'm not just going to automatically assume that I have something because I'm not diagnosed. And some people are like, well, I don't need a medical diagnosis to understand. Well, you would, because if you didn't actually know what the symptoms of a specific mental illness or character profile were, you wouldn't actually know how to label it. You may be the type of person saying, oh, there's something wrong with me. Well, if you can't describe exactly what's wrong with you, but you needed research to describe what's wrong with you, I think what you were doing is that you were reaching for a general category to fit in for awareness, for the attention. Because nowadays, you know, look at it. Social media is a attention grabber. We're constantly looking at things to get our attention within 5 seconds. If not, we're scrolling past it. If it's not something we relate to, we're scrolling past it. A lot of times we don't give people or things the opportunity to, like, be invested. Example, let's make it easy. Let's say I'm posting something from the socials page, and you may be a viewer and you see that I posted something. You scrolled right past it because it didn't pertain to you, right? You'll see something under what I posted, like a video that looks entertaining, or a meme that relates to you because it's like a SpongeBob character, or a SpongeBob setting, and you're like, oh, it's in your mind in a split millisecond, nanoseconds, like, oh, I know this one. So then you're drawn in, right? All this happens in 1 second. You recognize the characters, the art style, the environment, and you go, oh, I know this, so I'm going to start drawing my attention to it. And then you get to reading however the meme is laid out, and then what you start to do is you try to relate to it. Do I relate? I'm going to react. I might comment. Do I relate? Nah. Scroll. And because our minds work and operate so fast, you ended up reading and acknowledging all of that within 1 to 2 seconds, and within 5 seconds you made a decision to care to react or not, if it was relatable to you. It's like that when you're not. And I'll say this, I think honestly it's because the way the world is now, we're so disappointed with how it is, because we've put in what we feel is that we put in the time, effort, and all that to really turn things around, and we don't seem to be acknowledged as the humans that we are. So instead, um, we have to kind of distract ourselves by doing whatever it is that we feel better about. So back to what I was saying, I feel like we tend to we categorize ourselves, we label ourselves with wherever we fit or wherever we want to fit. For instance, I'll say it. There was a phase where people wanted to be gay or lesbian, which then also turned into a phase of wanting to be transgender. Um, it was a tough phase for people because there were actually people who were gay, there were actually people who were lesbian. But when you have people applying themselves to be that in that group, you're diluting it, because then you have each person who tries to fit themselves in it. They have their own idea of what it is to be gay. They have their own idea of what it is to be lesbian. They have their own idea and agenda of what it means to be a transgender, to be acknowledged as a transgender. The whole system of it all is diluted. So anyone who's actually that way looks like they're fake. They're no longer acknowledged because people don't want to hear it, because it's like, oh, we've heard your song and dance time and time again. I think I've had enough. And so we stop showing genuine attention to people who actually have something going on with them or who actually live this lifestyle. Because you start to see that people who are like that, when they're genuine about it, they tend to pull back in those phases. They don't jump with the bandwagon though. They're like, oh yeah, this is support, and like, oh yeah, like, it's just live your life. We don't No one has to abide by the rules that you create for yourself in your life. Like the fantasy that you want to live in, that's fine, because in reality, the life that you choose to live outside of the social norm is in fact a fantasy. But the fantasy is your reality, not the reality of the world. The world doesn't revolve around you. You live on a world that's revolving. You live in a time that it's you and now, but you'll be gone. And then it's this: are you trying to carry on a legacy that won't last long, because everything's a phase. Everything will fade out sooner or later. So I will always say, live life how you see fit, as long as you're not harming anyone, and if it makes you feel happy, if there's like genuine joy, live it however you want. There's no judgment or shame. There's no judgment from me. There's no shame to be had, depending on how you are around me or however I see you. That's Be who you feel like you are, but we shouldn't have to be forced to fit your narrative. We shouldn't have to be forced to really apply ourselves to live in your story. Now, what I mean by that, uh, let's say I'll make this quick. This topic, this specific subject, quick, because it's for another day. The pronouns phase. Like it was a really big one. And the conversation, like I said, can be had another day, but I'll make it quick. So when you're telling someone that, oh, I go by this and this, whatever, that's cool, because you have a community where you do that. There's a community in which they're like, oh, okay, I abide by that. I'll acknowledge that. I'll respect it, right? But then there's a whole world outside of you and that community where that all started. That's like, no, I didn't learn that, and I won't follow it. The problem is with that is that anytime someone has that opposition, they're like, oh, canceled. Oh, you don't respect me. Canceled. Calling you out now. This is profiling. This is discrimination. Like, you try to use any and every word to try to put down this person. It's like, nah, I just don't agree with that. Whatever the level of the response was, really, it comes down to, I don't agree with it, because that's not how it was taught. You can't force someone to learn what you applied to yourself in seconds because it felt right to you. That's no different than a Jehovah's Witness going door to door saying, you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and you go, no thank you, and their response is, you're going to hell. How do you feel about that? If you care about religion, you'll go, no, I'm not going to hell because, and then you'll try to, you'll list off why you won't be that person. But if you're not religious, or you just don't really care about some Jehovah's Witness because you go to church, or you just, that's not your religion, or you just don't like religion, or you don't follow religion at all, you'll be like, I don't care. That's not that's not what I believe in. You are not what I believe in. And that's that. That Jehovah's Witness person can only just leave and go to the next door. That's how it should be. You don't have to force anyone to call you a him, he, if they see and or know you as a she. Now, if you went to a community and they're like, oh, or you were like, oh, I'm he, him, and they're like, oh, okay. And then later on down the line, there was like a disagreement and they wanted to disrespect you. And then they were like, you're not even a he, him, you're a her. Well, yeah, that's where you can get upset because that's blatant disrespect. But for someone to not want to be a part of the fantasy that you live in, again, because I believe that the reality that we want to live in for ourselves outside of the social norm is in fact a fantasy. But there's nothing wrong with that. You can't get mad at someone because they don't want to follow your agenda. That's tyrannical. That's like being mad, again, back to the religion thing. That's like being mad at a Christian because they go, oh, do you believe in God? No. Why don't you? Like, you can't press me because I don't believe in what you believe in. You can't press me because I'm not following what you follow. I'm not practicing what you preach. Neither are you, but I'm not going to do it. And then it's like, oh, well, you're going to hell. That's equivalent to saying you're getting canceled. Discrimination, canceled. It's the same thing. So, kind of reel everything back in. A little serious there. I feel strongly about that. I I want people to understand that you don't have to label yourself because you feel a certain way. Like, go get the answers. I understand going to the doctor, going to whoever it is that has to like allow themselves to experiment on you. That's not the right way to say it. Evaluate. They go to evaluate you to understand if you have certain, signs of having this or that, brain scans and all that such. Like, if it comes down to mental illness and like you actually go and find out, okay. But if you feel like there's actually something wrong, I would say the best way to do it is approach someone who actually has it. The problem with that is that some people will actually do that. They go, hey, I feel like I might have depression. Can you tell me about it? You go and take their story, you go and take their emotions and you use it for yourself. It's very toxic. And that's very unfair to the person who has to actually deal with it, because now you're forcing yourself to deal with it too, but you're really not. You're just doing it for a story. You're doing it for the attention. A big one that I saw that was really disheartening to me was that there are a bunch of people who do it, but I saw that this one girl actually was doing it on TikTok, and she actually ended up getting caught. And she really tried to circle back on her lie. She what's the word that people use nowadays? I don't know. Like, there's a term for it. I don't know. But she was playing like she had Tourette's. And as we grew up as kids, when we started to understand what Tourette's was, it didn't help if you all know about South Park with, Cartman having Tourette's. It didn't help that we had that episode to look back on. But for anyone who actually didn't have Tourette's, and you're seeing people who are playing like their Tourette's, they're being called out on it. Because what it is that people try to find this like funny, and yet like, oh, they have this line where it's like it's funny, but you can also take it serious because it seems legit, right? So they do this thing where it's like, oh, I have these tics, I do this, I do that, but it's like what they don't understand is that they're doing way too many, and that's verified by people who actually have Tourette's. They're like, no, that's too many. Two, that you will never know when it's happening. That's another mistake people were making. They're like, oh, tick, here it comes. Like, you never know what happens. Just your brain's malfunction to make you do things that is classified as Tourette's. I found that out and I did some research, and come to find out, the girl that was faking it, she really tried to she tried to lie. She deleted her account because the lie was now viral. And then later on down the line, she was confronted about it. And she's like, I didn't lie, but I just did what was best, and I didn't want anyone upset. It's like, no, you were called out. You were caught in a lie. And I want people to feel like they don't have to label themselves. Faked it. Yes, Sean, she faked it. Like, okay, so get this, right? So like, I'll put it in an example, but I don't have Tourette's. I don't know what it means to have Tourette's, but I'll put it in an example, right? So let's say someone who has Tourette's, they have like a tick or a twitch kind of thing where they go, "Duh, brr, duh, brr," something like that. Like they'll do it, but like they don't know when it's gonna happen, but when it does happen, it happens. And they try to, eventually they get to the point to where it just happens, and they get comfortable with the idea that it's a thing for them. It's a life that they have to live. But then you get people who go, "Oh, I have Tourette's. Here comes a tick. Oh, bah, oh, bah," right? But they don't stop there. They go, "Oh, here comes another one. Ah, 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 ah." Oh my God, my Tourette's. Boo, bah. Man, it's like, wow, it's a slap in the face to people who actually live that, because it's a struggle for them. You're mocking their struggle. Same thing for anyone who's an introvert and an extrovert. You're mocking their lifestyle. You're mocking exactly. I watch Sweet Anita sometimes, so I learned a lot about it from her. Oh, okay. That she actually, I'm assuming she actually has Tourette's, right? Not that anyone could actually verify that that's just doing too much, but like, okay. Yeah, no, I didn't really understand it. But after I had found out about the chick was faking it, I did some deep diving, and yeah, you don't know when it's happening. It just happens. But like, she had a whole TikTok channel of just like every time she had a tick. The weird thing is like she recorded it before it was happening. So you had you or yourself hit the record button before it happened, and when it happened, you're just like, like that's bogus. That's mockery. And that's the thing, like it's a lot of it has, I want to say a lot of it has to do with social media, but like again, like we allow ourselves to feel like we have to do that. Like with some people, like for an easier example, some people feel like the best way to be funny or to get ahead, being a content creator, is doing dumb shit. Like as we all know, people who had Vine, anyone who was like, we all know it, like if you had a Vine or if you were on YouTube and you saw a Vine video, a lot of people who were reaching a lot of people who were reaching for clout, for views, a lot of them would scream, yell, they would do self-inflicting behaviors or stunts. They would do pranks, or they would blatantly be disrespectful, or like in public they would do some disrespectful stuff in public because it gets people to watch them. They're doing dumb stuff. They're like, oh, I know how to get the attention, I'll be dumb. And I want people to understand that you don't have to do that. You don't have to feel like you gotta be an introvert. There's no such thing as feeling like you gotta be one. It's whether you are one or not. Here's the thing, you didn't know if you were one or not until the two terms came about. Again, psychologist Cheek was doing the studies of introvert and extroversion were date all the way back to the 1980s. The psychologist who goes by the name of Cheek, he found out that there were 4 types of introversion due to doing a study on 500 different people who were all introverts, but they all behaved in a different manner. So when it comes to people saying, oh, I'm an introvert because I don't like being around in crowds, and like they just kind of make it seem like it's a like a quirk. Like, don't make it a quirk, just be that person. Like, if it's natural in conversation, like, oh, like, hey, do you kind of go out, like, do you like to go out, do you like to, not necessarily, I'm kind of like an introvert where I don't really like to, like some people tend to kind of force that narrative on themselves so they can apply it in a story for themselves or in a conversation for people. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm the newest fad label. I'm this, I'm that. It's like we don't care for your label. We don't really care about how you live your life as long as it's safe. As long as you're not harming anybody, that's cool. But people tend to always jump the bandwagon of having to label themselves or like be a part of some kind of phase and have fun. Have fun, right? But just like you're doing a disservice to people who actually struggle with this kind of thing when you're just, you're making a mockery for yourself for your gain instead of spreading actual awareness, instead of doing the research, instead of like reaching out to someone who has it's like, hey, I want to understand you better. um I'd like to know your story. Like have the conversation. That way when someone's talking about it's like, hey, I was talking to a friend of mine who's who's very introverted, who was let's say that they were a restrained introvert, and I felt like I related to some of the symptoms that they are, but I also feel like I'm a little bit too outgoing to be that. So I feel like I'm a social introvert. I found that out today. That's cool because you're like, oh hey, I'm this kind of label. Okay, it was labeled. All right, but you don't have to start living your life by that application. You can just see that it's an interesting topic or label and continue to live your life the same way. But I mean, it's just like I said, you're doing a disservice to people who actually have that struggle. And like, like reach out, like, hey, I feel like I'm a little naive to the struggle that what it is to actually being an introvert. I kind of want to learn more. Is there anything that you can tell me about what it is? What's the day to day? Like engage with your fellow person who has a struggle. Engage with the person who has depression. Engage with the person who has anxiety. Engage with the person who's really introverted, who really doesn't go out. Like understand why like that introvert doesn't do what they're do, because again it's a characteristic profile, partially genetic, but it's not a choice. It's just like, oh, I don't, yeah, it's really not in their nature to want to go do certain things, be around people like that to really talk. um so which brings me to the question, if you really understand everything that has been provided to you as far as being an introvert or an extrovert, which one are you? Do you feel like you fit in either one? If not, that's all right. So before I open it up here, another ways that an extrovert can recharge: cooking, sports, volunteering. That was a big one to me because it's like it's not only are you getting out there, you moving around, you're being social, but you're doing a service to your community, volunteering. Socialize, obviously. Having more than one hobby, being able to multitask hobbies. Uh, Work and exercise. Exercise goes both ways for introversion and extroversion, simply because when you're exercising, you can either exercise in a gym, being around people, being able to see people get their gain on. You're like, oh, hey, I want to be that too. Or you can be the type of person who is an introvert and you either work out alone or you work out with headphones, and it's all about just really just kind of like being in your own head, being with yourself and your own thoughts, just kind of like creating some clarity, restoration. That's how I see it when it comes to an introvert exercising. Yoga is also exercise, so that fits too. A few more things that help recharge an introvert that I had come to read and understand. As I said before, reading, enjoying nature, being out in the wild, being able to breathe with the trees, brush with the grass, feel the sun, you know, be one with the wind, just kind of taking it all in because you're just allowing that peace, that mentality just to hit your brain. Even if it's not a nice breezy sunny day, if it's rain, sometimes rain helps too. Rain helps me. Rain helps people sleep. Rain can be warm or cold, but it's water. The sound and the sensation is also very relaxing. So I can see why a rainy day would really help an introvert. It My next one would be shower or bath. That calamity that you get when it comes to being submerged in water, and at any temp that you prefer, like whatever preference. A lot of people, hot water, jacuzzis, hot tubs. Just sit there and to be submerged and letting your body just loosen up and relax. Or if you're the type of person who really likes your bath or shower cold, That's also I can't. Not me. As I said before, meditating, yoga, and then another one, pets. A lot of times you might realize that your friend or your family member might be an introvert when they have a pet that they're really into. If they're like single, or even if they're not single, but they're like really about their pet. It's more than just like a family or a pet. Like they're really like it's almost like it's an extension of themselves. Having a pet, dog, cat, amphibian, reptile, doesn't matter. Like to be able to see someone interact with a pet as almost, it's like I said, an extension of themselves. Like wow, like a Steve Irwin kind of, like able to just kind of like really just like be an animal himself, be a pet himself, kind of understanding what it means to be a pet, kind of like that. So yeah, I mean that's why I felt like doing this topic on this part. I just really want to shed some light on anyone who's not only introverted but extrovert as well, because the extroverts need love too. You guys like to be out there and like what really admirable is that you have the energy to do that at any age. Like you can get out there, you can mingle, like you're the type of person who can go from group to group. Like you were probably the type of person who was like really vibrant in high school. You can go to different cliques and everyone like, they know you, they love you. Did I say there's also such a thing as a shy extrovert? I don't think I said that, but if I didn't, yes. I think I skipped that one on accident. So yeah, no, there is such a thing as a shy extrovert. You can be like it's the fact that you like to be out where all the action is, right? Like you just you get a surge, you get a rush. Like let's say weekend release of a big movie by yourself. You're getting that adrenaline, that rush of being with everyone because it's the first release and you know it's gonna be packed, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to hit you. Watch that. There's my popcorn right there. Oh, you need a napkin? I spilled my drink on you. My bad. Right? But it's like maybe you were too shy to ask anyone to join you. Maybe you're just shy because you know that you can sit there and not really need to talk to anyone because it's a movie, but you like knowing that it's a packed house, like knowing that it's the biggest movie of the weekend, right? Something like that. That's how I take it. But yeah, it's just I want to do a service for anyone who's aware of who they are, aware of their characteristic personality, their characteristic profile. We acknowledge you. We know you live, and we know that the way that you live was a phase for everyone, but you're still going long and strong. And I gotta say, for anyone, I for actually, I'll before I go ahead and open everything up, I'll get in the process of opening things up. Where I think before, just to kind of actually to start to open things up, I don't know where I fit because me personally, I think I'm well rounded. Um, and this might help anyone understand, or it might make it a little more hard to understand where they're at. It's like so I'll start small. When I was in school, I felt like I didn't fit, but I know I fit because people would talk, people would interact, people would like ask for me to be around. Like there was a group of cool kids, and I knew two of them out of the eight, and like I was acknowledged by them. There were the band people because I was in band. I was acknowledged by them. I hung out with them, right? However, the clique was like I always knew that there was one or two people in each clique. I was acknowledged by them, but I always felt like because I was like I was and I still am a very observant person. I was always more internal than I was external. I think at one point in time, honestly, I really can't say that because what I was gonna say is that as a kid, I used to be so outgoing, so rambunctious. I could run around and laugh and chat and be like talkative to people. But now I just kind of like stay to myself. I think I may have fit the profile of someone who was socially introverted because when it comes to my thoughts and emotions, I tend to keep them to myself. but I can be the social butterfly. I can be in any clique. I can, I can talk to strangers. I can be present, but I'm always in here. I always keep things in here. But just judging, I think judging on the research that I've done, I think I could probably say I'm a social introvert. But I won't actually begin to classify myself as anything because I'm still I'm still soul searching on just me, and like I've been so isolated, like internally and emotionally, that I'm starting to get the idea of how to think and how to feel, and really being tested to keep those things in check, and learning how to deal with them as an adult. So, but I think I lean more towards social introvert, but I don't know. We'll go with that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to anyone, and we'll go ahead and hit the socials for anyone to also involve. See, I look like a naked mole rat with my glasses on. Oh, I look like a koala. I look like a sloth. I hella look like a sloth. All right. So we were opening up discussion with, are you an intro or extrovert? Do you feel like you're an intro and extrovert? Oh, do you classify yourself as one? Do you feel like you're one? What was the last thing? It was a big question. It was a good one. What does it mean? I think I got it. What does it mean to be? What does it mean to be? What does it mean to be either or? Okay, I think I got it. So as I was saying, I touch on the topic of people just kind of like mocking a certain a demographic just to fit their lifestyle. Just to kind of go into it a little deeper. Um, or no, that's not what I was talking about. It was having a, well, kinda. I don't even remember what I just said like 2 seconds ago. I need sleep. Um, Having to classify yourself with a label. No, that wasn't it. I think I just said that. It's making people conform to your fantasy. We'll talk about all of it in one route. So again, like I was saying earlier, like I think most of us can say we don't really mind that you have a way that you want to live life. But, there's a way that you want to be identified. There are things that you want to do that isn't what normal people do, or isn't like normally associated with. That's cool. The problem is that it's gotten to a point to where you're forcing people to conform to your narrative. I find that very displeasing and very wrong. It's even trickled into the elementary school, that we're just trying to conform because we want this. We're in this phase of inclusiveness where we have to include everyone, and it's not necessary because you're already included as a person. Anything extra outside of basic human living, I think what it is that when you're demanding specific rights to befit your lifestyle outside of everyone else, that's asking a lot. I guess I just don't understand it, because like when you're living in this specific reality and you expect everyone to kind of, be cool with it, and then you take it a notch up and say, well, I deserve to be equally treated as you are. Well, how is it any different? Now, I can understand if you're being discriminated against because of how you live your life. Like, and I think you as a person would know if this is you, right? Let's say furries. If you're not familiar with the term furry, it's a person who likes to dress up as, from what I understand. You know what? Let me not be wrong. Let me not piss anyone off more than I already am, because I'm Mr. Controversy. Yeah, what I just said. Furries are individuals who are especially interested in anthropomorphic or cartoon animals. They often strongly identify with anthropomorphic animals and create persona. Identities of themselves as those an- can't say it anymore. Anthropomorphic. Wait, what? Anthropomorphic. Well, have I been saying it wrong this entire time? Anthropomorphic animals. I'm still sitting on the fact that they said fursonas. Okay, do you, man? What's your fursona? Oh man, I have too much fun with that word. Is furry a mental issue? Like, you know how you do a Google search? They give you like more like other relatable questions with the little drop down arrow. Is it okay for a kid to be a furry? What do furries believe? Why do people become a furry? Is furry a mental health issue? How do you identify a furry? Is it okay to call someone furry? What do you do when someone calls you a furry? Is it a sin to be a furry? How do you deal with a furry? Oh my god. Did I read that right? No. Nope. I'm tired. Anyway, back to what I was saying. How did I get on this subject? Okay. Let's say there's a furry, someone who likes to dress up as an animal, you know, for their artistic pleasure, as he says, or sexual pleasure, because it could also be a sexual thing. Oh no, here's a good one. There's somebody, I think he's I can't remember where he's from, but he actually spent like 40 G's, $40,000 for someone to make an actual dog suit where he can position his legs correctly to walk and look like an actual dog. Okay, Japanese man spends $15,000 on lifelike dog costume. I don't know what kind of dog this is. I'm not really familiar with my dogs. But yeah, he like almost at a standstill. He looks like he's a real dog, but when he gets to walking, because he actually has people walk him like he's a dog. He'll do a leash and everything. Um, yeah, no, he's not moving like a dog would. Stuff like this. Like I understand people want to live a life and they don't want to be like you just want to live without having anyone make fun of you. You want to be able to live without people harassing you. That's totally understandable. But when you get to a point where you're trying to force people to abide by your narrative, to really play into your story, that's crossing the line. That's aggressive. Like you can't make people do that and then get upset when they don't, and then go to call for an action to be done because you feel like you were ousted in that opportunity to be taken seriously, because it's not the same. Whether or not this person wants to take you seriously for agreeing with identifying you as whatever it is that you want to be identified as, like bottom line is that you're a human being. Like the sky's the limit on whatever you want to be as far as a human being, how you want to be a human being, or if you don't want to be a human being. But you have to remember, people abide by what they were taught. So if the science is determining that because a woman can have babies, they're the ones who carry babies, they go in labor and birth babies, birth humans. Men hold the necessary tools to put those babies in the woman, like a chicken nugget in the oven that comes out looking like a rotisserie chicken. That's what you classify as a man and a woman. Now, when you are trying to tell other people who know that logic, that's logic to them. That's not a real definition of a man or a woman. Well, when you ask someone who has that kind of mindset, how do you define a man? How do you find a woman? Crickets. Well, and then they start to go on a tangent, or like, I'm above this. Like, no, like have a serious conversation, answer it seriously. How would you define a man or a woman outside of science, outside of anatomy? And some people will try it. There's even like an anatomy expert out there who's like, oh, it's not really science stating that a man, because of a chromosome and blah blah this and that, he's identified as a man. It's a spectrum. How is it a spectrum? There's no in between on who can and can't have a baby, because you'll have people who have abnormalities, but that doesn't mean that it's a full spectrum. Like there are women who come out of the womb and grow from little girls to women who can't have kids. That doesn't change anything. That just means they, for some reason, can't have kids. That doesn't make them less of a woman. That doesn't make them more of a man, because they pretty much have neither. So what are you going to call them? Are you even going to label them like that? You know? I just think it's not necessary to try to make people to conform. Like now, you answer questions on a survey, you go to fill out what do you call it, a job application or any application. When you identify your gender, male, female, non-binary, prefer not to answer. What is non-binary? Like, you can feel like you're neither one, right? That's cool. But when someone says, "Oh, I feel like I'm black but I'm white," you can't be like, "Oh, that's just unnecessary. That's crossing the line. That doesn't make sense." What doesn't make sense is that you're saying that you're neither when you have the tools to specify whether you do or don't. Now, if you actually can't do either, that's completely understandable. Then you can call yourself non-binary, and people will be like, "Okay, I get it." They'll get it then, right? But when you're like, "Oh, I'm non-binary. Can you have kids?" "Yeah, but I choose not to." Well, that's you choose not to. This non-binary mess. And gender's a spectrum. Sexuality is a spectrum because you can be and do whoever you want. But you like how you reproduce, not a spectrum. There isn't many different ways that you can have a baby. And for all we know, it's really just one. But I don't know. I don't find it right. Oh, hey, Uncle Paul. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't think that people will actually care how you live your life as long as you're not trying to force them to believe what you believe. Like I was saying, the perfect correlation to that is anyone who's trying to force you to believe whatever religion that they stand behind, whatever religion that they follow. You wouldn't want anyone in your face and telling you that you're doing this or you're going this place because you don't believe in what they're believing. It's the same outlook. You can't expect anyone to want to be like, "Oh, I believe you now," because you threatened to cancel me because you feel like you're discriminated and you're going to social media to out me. Like, you went to find my profile, you took my picture, you recorded me on video, you recorded me on audio, whatever method that you went through to say I discriminated against you because I didn't follow your narrative. That's not fair. Live your life. Label yourself how you want to label yourself, but you can't force anyone to do it. This is not fair. It's not right. Again, there are communities to which people abide by those narratives. Live within those communities. If is that not enough? That's a genuine question. Is that not enough? Like, why is it that you need to force people to be like, "Oh, call me ma'am"? Oh, I see a dude in front of me. Forgive me if I don't feel the need to call you a ma'am because I see that you're a dude. I mean, like, I can see why you'd be offended by that, but at the same time, I don't. Like, I'm very neutral about it because I get it. You want to be acknowledged the way that you feel, but the thing is, the other person doesn't feel that because they don't know that. And when you're trying to tell them that you feel that way and they must respect you in that manner, it's not respect, is you're asking for a little bit too much. Because, like, here's the weird thing too. Like, the whole thing, I'll be blunt about it. It's very confusing, is what it is. Like, because you know, you start to put yourself in this mentality when, from what people see on the outside in, I'll be the advocate, right? From what people see on the outside looking in, when it comes to knowing a stereotypical gay man, um, they they usually have the same stature, they kind of dress similar, they kind of act similar. Um, there are some people who are gay and you won't ever know it because they know that you're not what they're looking for, so they're not gonna flaunt it. I guess there are people who are gay and they're just gay, and there are people who are gay and who are flamboyant. From what I understand, I don't really know how far the lore is on being gay, but that's just from what I understand. And on a stereotypical basis, being the advocate. So people conform to that, but here's the thing: like, there was always that one person who acted gay all their life, right? We all knew that person who just, there was a male. He tended to act a little more, feminine, but he wouldn't or they wouldn't, I should say. They wouldn't be like so over exaggerated as some gay men are now, where it's almost like a caricature of being gay. Again, I don't know what it means to be gay other than the fact that you like same sex. So how it how it is to act gay, I don't think there is such a thing as acting gay other than the fact of doing an act on another, on same sex. That's the only way I see acting gay. What we've come to understand acting gay is it's being flamboyant. Um, and that's just because of how we were kind of raised, right? Being flamboyant or the other F word. But it's confusing because then you start to get people who have said, "Oh, all my life I felt like I'm a woman." Well, judging on the type of women that you were surrounded with growing up, that's what you know to be a woman. But when you use that term, it's kind of confusing because you're only saying I've always felt like the women that I've grew up with. That's what you should be saying, because you don't know what it means to actually be a woman. Because there's so many ways to be a woman, there's so many ways to be a man. Like if anything's on a spectrum, that's exactly what it is. But and like for anyone to say I can be this, I can be that. Well, when you actually have to label it like this. So for instance, let's say like a lesbian, or what we'll call, or what's been called like a dyke. They dress up like guys, like straight up, and they dress up like guys who have taste. Um, or like there's dykes and then there's butch. I don't really know the history on the two terms, but butch is also, I think, it's like a step up. The way I see it is like a tomboy or a tom girl who just said, "No, this is me for real." Like I like I like women, and I like dressing in, like I'm more comfortable in men's clothes than I am in like um I wouldn't say female clothes, but I would say was there's a term for it. No, not prissy. Female clothes. I'll just keep it simple. Like dresses, skirts, and all that. They'd rather wear like the typical guy wear. Because I mean, like women have jeans, but like there's like low rise jeans, there's high rise jeans, there's jeans that fit perfect for the butt. There's like bell bottoms, but then there's women who actually like wearing boot cut, straight cut, baggy, like men's jeans, men's shirts, no bra. The confusing part about that is that like I'm a lesbian, therefore I like girls, but I want to be the man for the girl I'm looking for. Like when you think in that aspect and you dress the way you dress, you have an idea of what the other gender is. Just like for anyone who's transgender, like a man transitioning into a woman, they're like, "Oh, I've always felt like I'm a woman all my life," and they go to dress as the typical woman in high beauty standards. The one thing that always confused me is that there's never really, from what I've heard, is that there's never ever really been anyone who says, "I want to be a woman because I want to be a mother, I want to be a nurse, I want to be an aunt," and they go to dress as like a basic woman instead of having to dress up like an Instagram model. There's no one, I've yet to see anyone dressing up as a normal, like basic dressed personality of a woman. Like it's always extra flamboyant, extra, like just extra makeup, dresses, heels, jewelry. Like I've never heard anyone say I want to be a mother. I'm not gonna repeat myself, but I've always found that weird. Like if we're not labeling genders, then why are you going as the stereotypical gender? Like for lesbian, like dykes and butch, you're dressed up as a man, wearing men's stuff, wearing men's, like you go to the men's section and get all your clothes. For a transgender, for like a man transitioning to a woman, you go to the women's section and get all your clothes, but you go to like dresses and stuff. Like if we're not labeling genders, why are you dressed and acting like the gender? I always found that weird. I never question it because that's it's not a life that I live. So it's just, I don't know. I've always found that weird. I can go on and on. I mean, this will turn into a whole conversation of like I think Sean calls it pegboarding. Like I'm pegboarding right now because I just like think of way too much stuff. I'll end up looking like Charlie Day on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's too much on the board, you know? But I mean, just back to everything. Reel it back in, reel it back in. Feeling pressured to abide by a label and then conforming to the label's rules, so to speak, because if you think about it, there's always some kind of rule book that you have to follow. And when there really isn't, it's just like being a normal person to someone who doesn't feel like they have to change. Like for anyone acting like a man, they're like, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. It's like, I mean, you don't actually understand what it means to be a man in today's world, emotionally, mentally, physically. You're just playing like you're playing dress up, you know? You're playing dress up to get like to have a game. Or, you know, like like some of the people who have like a racial issue, like a racial identity crisis, like the Rachel Dozer or something like that, where she's like, I identify as black. Went and got a tan to be light skinned, curled her hair, a routine done like on a daily basis because she wants to identify as a black person. That right there is like, well, if this is your caricature of a black person, do you actually know what it means to be black? Does a black person know what it means to be black? No, because we're applying today's social status to what it means to be black. Like we really don't, because there's so many type of black people. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, I picked this one. This is the epitome of being black. There really is no being black. There's just like being a certain type of black person in America. There's no being black. You can't do that. It doesn't make sense. It's all the same thing. Like you can't just be a man, because there's a different way to be a man. That's just how I see it. You know, I think I'm just kind of I'm trying to make sense of it. If we see it this way, it kind of matches the same kind of movement, and I don't want to diminish anyone's like you know, way of life. Like continue to live that, continue to prosper in that mindset. Just it doesn't make sense to me the way people try to make it make sense because they want it to be right. They want it to matter. Like as a person, as a human being, you matter, but the choices that you make in life that don't apply to me, they shouldn't matter. We don't live the same life. If you were to be my friend, as long as you're safe, as long as you're not, you know, you're not a harm to anyone else, like you'll have support, but it shouldn't matter. Just do what you want to do. Because I get it. Like it's very scary to want to do something with your life that's different than what most people do, and you get death threats. You get people who actually like make a point to try to attack you, belittle you, make you feel less than nothing, and that right there will make you want to stand up and attack the front lines of those type of people. I completely understand that, and you have my support, because you should feel like you belong. You should feel like you can live and love and do as you please. That's not right. To feel attacked, to feel prejudiced, to be on the back end of prejudice and just discrimination. But we have to remember, as humans, all of us understand what that is. We understand to do it, and we understand to receive it. But we're so focused on ourselves, we forget that someone else is, you know, someone that we're attacking or someone that's attacked us is probably struggling with the same thing. We all have something in common, whether it's us directly or someone in our family history or someone in the future. I think we all just have to understand it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, feel safe enough to, you know, to be that. And that because that idea seems to be lost, we tend to just kind of like fight. Feel like we gotta fight for it. And I hate that. That's really the purpose of me wanting to understand everything, and why I question the things the way I do is because that fight shouldn't have to be had. It should be fair, right? You should be able to walk to your favorite place dressed however you want and not have someone be like, I don't agree with what you're doing right now. So much that I actually want to physically harm you. That's scary. because you can either rise above the occasion or you can falter. And a lot of times, faltering is a lot more harm than good for you as an individual. Because I'm aware of what comes next. You're having to live a life that you don't want to live, and you can't live it anymore. I think I know my purpose is to really just understand, because I try to piece things together. I try to make things connect. And if we can get one group of person or one group of people to understand another group, we'll all have a bigger understanding that we're kind of all fighting for the same thing. This division where we have to identify ourselves as individuals, outside of the already division where identity is being taken. Identity was taken, lives are taken because of identity. I wish there was a way that we can be above it. No one deserves to die. No one deserves to be hurt. Like, the one thing I keep thinking of right now is like, one big one, obviously, was the U.S. history of racism. I know there are many people who aren't African America and who didn't come from Africa who feel for African Americans, who feel for the people the slaves that were, mistreated and were slaves, and who had to go through that era. Like, you can be whatever race you are, and you can feel, and that's admirable. That's the next step in this unity that we're seeking. And it's not that I'm thinking about it because it's like the one, one of all thing. It's just like I keep thinking about it because it was so big that now that we're all come to understanding that it was wrong. And I think individually we all want to try to do better than that time in history. But we get so caught up in the mistreatment that we want some control for once. We want to be able to, like, call something ours, to be that individual, to be that standout, to not take it anymore. We're not taking this this abuse. We're not taking this mistreatment. We're not gonna take it, right? That's the mentality. Like, we don't want to take it. And I hate that we're here. I've experienced it. I've lived it. I've felt that, and I wish I could. I know, like a lot of us, I wish at the snap of a finger we could change that, but it's not easy like that. Simply because we have to understand each other. We have to put in the effort to listen and understand each other. You don't have to love, but you can show respect. Like, you just acknowledge that there's another human being wanting to live life the way that they want to live life, as long as they're not harming anyone. What's it to you? Why are they? Why do you feel like you have to make them be in your way? Why do you have to be in their way because you feel like they're in your way? Because I know we're getting close to this point where we unify, and everyone will just be, we'll live a moment of peace and unity until someone tries to come and break it up again because they feel like they can run the world, they can rule the world. We're hitting that point where we're knocking those walls down, where we allow people to blind us with the media and the way it is to kind of divide us. I know we're close to a point. We're getting there. We just got to keep up the efforts to really try to love, or just understand each other, stick up for each other, be there for each other. Like, it's such a beautiful thing to see. It's a complete 180. White people, you know, white people marching for black people's rights, for their humanity. Whites and blacks sticking up for the Asians because there was Asian hate for some reason. All of the world, all of America, the majority of the world, the majority of America sticking up for Hispanics who just want some kind of freedom, because like their way of life is much, they don't have the same privileges as we do here in America, so they come to land of the free, home of the brave, right? They want an opportunity to give back to their family. They just want a shot. And we're so giving of peace and freedom, like we can't give them an opportunity. We can't like negotiate an opportunity. Eh, The point being is that we've come together as a majority to really like root for like Mexico or Hispanics or anyone who's like leaving a I want to say broken country, just to live, to survive. Like, they like the people in Asia, Middle East, like they took the leap to really either like swim over here on whatever surface that they could, boat, plank, door, whatever it was, whatever story your family has of making it all the way over here, like they did it. Why? This place really is a place of hope. Out of all the countries and states and continents in the world, this place is a place of hope because of the people, not because of the government, not because of the division, the hate, because of the people. Yes, there are places in America where people aren't so great, but that's because those places are tired of being run down, ragged, and forgotten about. Say this just to reunify everything. I want everyone who's viewing to understand this. No matter who you are, path of life you take, the hobbies that you invest in should matter as an entity that's living and breathing. But because we're divided, you're only seen as a pawn or a number. We have to unify mentally, spiritually, to break the blinders that are bestowed upon us, to divide ourselves to thinking that we're better than the next person. Just different. Better, worse. Different. That's okay. That's what makes hope alive, is different. Because you're giving someone else hope to believe, oh, I'm different too. I'm different like this person. I'm the same as this person who's different. That's hope. That's acceptance. Hope for acceptance. But we have to unify all at once to really break the cycle. The cycle continues when we constantly allow ourselves to believe that the way of living is to work, make money that we can't hold on to. Meanwhile, the rich will sit there on their wealth. Sitting money is no money. Money that's not in constant flow has no value. But we believe it's valuable because they're sitting on it. Like they hold it, they call it valuable because they have more than you. You have more that you're not using. You have more that you're using on toys rather than resources. Not to dog on any celebrity or anyone who's rich, but all these people who have stacked bank accounts, but people around the country and the world are struggling. Mr. Beast is the only one out here. Well, he's not, but he's a big name out here giving out money to people because he makes his money to give it. But the wealthy make their money to call themselves wealthy. So we have our mentality to be the same way. I want to be wealthy one day. I want to sit on that wealth like they do. I want to sit at the table of wealthy. I want to be surrounded by wealthy people. Why? Because they had a mentality that cheat their way through. Because if anyone who actually worked hard for their wealth isn't just sitting on it, they're doing something with it. These investments made, they're help. Like you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't operate on a wealthy mindset, so I don't know. I think I'm just speaking on the fact that I feel like that's how it should be. But we have to come together and show them that they can no longer control us with this currency, with this mindset that we have to work for money. The riches are the land that we live on. The riches are the land that they make us pay for. The resources that are naturally given to us by the earth, we pay for them. We have the resources to grow our own resources, but we have to like answer a survey to let people know that we have it, so they can tax us for it. We're being taxed for nature. We pay for water. I understand paying for it to be filtered and cleaned, but it's a natural resource. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that you can be like, it's a crime to collect a natural resource. Water, rainwater, it's illegal in some places. You have to be taxed. You have to let the government know. You have to let Uncle Sam know that you have a garden. You have chickens. You have a farm. Natural resources that are in constant abundance. Paying for. You choose that because when you choose to live in a home, when you choose to drive a car, when you choose to have a job, when you choose to have material, it's a material life. Now you can go out there and live a life of, but you're choosing AC, and I am too. Like, obviously, I'm using internet to talk to you all. I'm in a home. I'm clothed. I've got a coffee mug with dad on it. turntables in the back, a gaming chair, material, because I like it. You know, I like what I like, but I also know that, and it's starting to kill me paying for food that's grown from the earth. But when you start growing your own, they want to know who's doing it, how much of it is being done, because they're trying to increase. They're trying to increase. So I don't know. Like, I mean, and if you think about it more, like the basic way to live as a human being is getting harder because they're slowly taking away that basic ability to live as a human being. Again, they don't see you as a human being; they see you as a number. All we gotta do is unify. We gotta unify. We gotta let them know that they can no longer control us with the ideology of money, currency, economy. We should be able to live as a community that grows and shares with one another. You know, go back to that. Like a community garden where everyone puts in, so everyone can eat. And it doesn't have to just be one garden. A community garden can be like every street at one. So if one person runs out, hey, can we come take some? I owe you? Yeah. And there's always going to be some problems. There's always going to be someone who wants to like tear down that ideology of a community that lives together, that shares together. Someone always wants to take over and say, I rule this community. I own this community. Someone always wants that. But as long as you stay unified, you can combat that. Don't let that person rule. I have hope, though. Oh, yeah. I hope. I got faith. Like I said, we're getting close to that. I won't call it a coup. I won't call it an overthrow, but it'll be a stand. Humanity, society will make its stand against the powers that be that think money is above human thought. We'll get there. Close. Till then, I'm gonna continue being who I am for the people. I'm gonna continue allowing the people to be how they are for me. I used to be mad. I know I've gotten way off topic. Gotten way off topic. Whoa, right? Look, I used to be mad because I used to sit and just like see in disbelief. Like I couldn't believe what life has come to, what the world has come to, what we've allowed to happen to us, against us. You know, I used to be mad, but I would also make mistakes of my own and I'd feel even worse. I used to be an angry individual. I'm still mad, but you know, I'm starting to take a stand. I'm starting to do things, starting to put out the information, put it in people's ear, help any way I can. Because being mad is not going to get anyone anywhere. Take action. Spread the word. Spread the truth. Spread the positivity. Wake each other up. I used to be so mad. I'd just be like, why are we so stupid? Why are we so wrong to let these people lie to us? Let these people make us believe that it's their way or no way at all. Like, to live outside of a home that was built for you where you pay rent or you pay a mortgage is not homeless. You just don't have a government provided home. You can go out and make your own home. Resources are all around you. And build your own shelter. You don't even need wood. There's so many ways that you can make a shack. You can, you know, it just takes time and effort. What we're paying for is other people to do it. What we're paying for is a taxation. And I'll say this real quick. The ideology of being taxed, like tax on a tax on a tax on a tax on a tax. We allow that to happen. And we're just like, okay, that's economy. But we also never learn to question it. We're letting this happen. Like, for anyone who's a hard worker, you look at your paycheck and you see all these taxes, like, well, why am I paying all this? And so much. I would understand if tax, like, you know, in some other places of the world where taxes are high, but the amenities of taxes are way better than what we have here. And that's not to say they're more better there than they are here. It's just like I think we can learn from each other. Each country can learn from each other. But to have tax on tax on tax on the working person just to go pay for more taxes to get taxed elsewhere, crazy. And we just let it happen without a thought. We just learned that that was how it's supposed to be, and we go, okay. We didn't question why. We may have, but the answer was just that's how it is, and we're like, okay. Crazy how far we've come, and we still allow certain things that happen to humanity, and we feel powerless because we're like, well, I don't have the name behind me. I don't have the funds behind me. Like, we could all just take a moment. Like, if we all for one day, a good 90% of people in the country didn't show up to work, right? If we all just took one day to be like, no, and watch the economy shut down, the tune will be so different. Now, because what it is that they'll be like, oh, it's just one day. They'll all come back to work. They won't do this again. Do it for a week. Now you've made your statement. Now you've taken your stand. Now they're going to ask, well, what do we need to do to fix this? Because no matter who's trying to run for president, they're all giving us the same lie. They're a mascot and nothing more. They don't run anything because we have an executive branch and I don't know, but I know there's a different branch of the government that does the bill signing. I could be wrong, but at the same time, I don't feel like I am. Because you need the mascot to look like they're signing everything off, but we know the bill can be passed by, was it the Supreme Court? Not the president. There's bills that can be signed above the president. Saying, I don't know. Now I'm starting to rant, but I got faith. I have faith in this, but we gotta realize that everything that's given to us that we have to purchase isn't the only resources available. We can create more resources. We can bring the earth back to a stasis livability, but with all this trash, pollution on the ground, in the water, in the air, like, we take it for granted, just like the government takes us for granted. They expect us to sit and watch idly by, say nothing, because they force us to believe that they're providing us a service. It's not a provision if we have to pay for it. Any genius can fashion a way to filter water. Are they expecting anyone to pay them for it? No, they did it out of the fact that humanity needs it. Someone said, no, charge them for it. Let them know that if they want clean water, they'll do anything that they must to get this clean water. You make the money, buy this water. Really, only clean water in miles. You'll have to go somewhere else. But here, provide the best water. Clean, triple filtered. No one else is going to do what we did. That's the pitch, right? Someone else does it. Either sells for less or sells for more. Same pitch. No one has it like us. Can't beat it. Someone else does it. But because you have two competitors, the third person doesn't really get the light that they deserve, because they were like, hey, low price, only because we have to put back in for maintenance and for the people that actually worked on it. They deserve to be compensated, but the prices are going to remain low. We'll take a loss. Okay, that's understandable. Take care of the people who worked on it. Take care of the person, resources. But for someone to make full commerce on resources that are provided to us by the earth, that's just, I think when we stop and realize that everything that we use isn't necessary, because we think life's gonna be boring. It doesn't have to be. We have this ideology that, like, the world would end in 2012, or people will become zombies because of bath salts and everything. But I mean, if you think about it, the world is based on what? A land of people that make it run. The world did end because we stopped having the control. We stopped having any control of being able to run it. We have a leader that we follow, but for some reason the control that we had has been confiscated, and we didn't actually really see it happen. It was a slow burn. And the whole zombie thing, well, walk around with our phones and our faces in screens, or we sit around with our faces in screens like you may be doing now, like I'm doing right now too. But there's no substance. I at least try to provide substance. If I'm not, you can tell me, and I'll be like, okay. I'd want to do better though. But we allow entertainment, a lack of substance, to occupy ourselves. That's what they expect. They expect you to be occupied, so things can happen under your nose, and you wouldn't budge to see what it was. Tinfoil hat conversations for another day, but my main message: that you live how you live. That's someone else's way of life. If it's no harm to you, if you don't understand it, you don't agree with it, respect that the person is just living their life. I know there's a whole conversation to be had about, well, morality, the morals are taught different, and for the kids and the children. I was like, yeah, but we have to come together and understand what's, like, we also have to understand that kids don't have to really look into the lives of people that are lived by adults. Adults shouldn't be trying to force a narrative on kids, because kids should be able to look and see what they want to do, rather than having something shoved down their throat in the name of freedom, in the name of art. But again, my message is just live for yourself, but acknowledge one another. It'll go a long way. I'm going to call it early. I appreciate everyone that's been able to view, stop by, check it out. For anyone that's viewing, I mean, what's your take on everything? What's your take on introversion, extroversion? What's your take on a forced narrative? I mean, this is all social. It all fits, so I guess I didn't stray too far. What's your take on everything? Let me know. Let's have a chat. If you disagree, let's talk about it. That's the only way that we kind of get things hashed out. That's the only way we're heard. Even if we end up disagreeing, we agree to disagree. Let's talk about it. Let's have a civil adult conversation. I'm down. Are you? That's my time. I'm gonna go ahead and hop out early. I appreciate everyone again, as always, for the support. Thanks for the love. See you around. Peace.